It has been over 12 years since we saw the last Elder Scrolls title with Skyrim. With it came innovation to combat, graphics, and so much more. But that doesn't mean that things cannot be improved still. Now that we have played almost every last bit of Starfield, we can make somewhat of an assumption on where the Elder Scrolls 6 will be going and what they will be adding to the next installment in this series. And what is up guys, Andrew from the Den Men here, and today I want to take a look at some specific things that Bethesda can do to make the Elder Scrolls 6 a great game. Now, we will be doing a deep dive into a couple of different features, and we can't touch upon everything in the video, so if you want a part 2, make sure you guys hit that like button and comment what you think Bethesda needs to do to make the Elder Scrolls 6 a great game for everyone to enjoy. Before we get into it, I will be looking back at Skyrim a lot because that was the last Elder Scrolls game and can give us a good framework for what we will be seeing. But with that being said, we have a lot to go over, so get comfy, grab that bottle of Blackbriar mead, and let's get right into the video. Starting off, I would like to see the cities in the Elder Scrolls 6 be larger and more in depth. The cities in Skyrim felt more like villages and not a lot was going on within them. If you look at a city like the Imperial City and then compare it to Whiterun, no doubt will people say that the Imperial City was larger and more in depth by far. When it comes to the Elder Scrolls 6, if Bethesda gives us these larger cities, I can see it being a step up already from Skyrim with them having the same copy and paste villages scattered throughout the map. Not only does the size of a city need to be larger, but inside the city I don't want it to feel like it is dead. It should be bustling with people and stores to liven it up even more. I want to see a large marketplace where people are trading and conversation is happening everywhere. I want to see shady people in the alleyways menacing as they are and up to no good. They should have kids playing within the streets and their mothers calling them home for dinner. The guards should be varied with looks and their resolution to defend the city. Maybe one guard is on watch and defends the crown with great passion, and another falls asleep on duty all the time and is known as the Fool of the Guard. He would be easy to sneak by and can be bribed to look the other way. If there is a thieves guild in the game, these types of guards could be used to get closer to your goal and help you out. The level of immersion that this will bring is something that we haven't seen in Elder Scrolls games up to this point. It would no doubt be something that fans would enjoy. On top of that though, we should be able to notice the difference between day and nighttime because it will change the city greatly with thieves and no good people being out at night. An increase in robbing and guard activity will be increased at night as well. The city should be quiet in the late hours of the night and all that lurks are the people planning to do something bad and the ones coming back drunk from the tavern. The difference between what happens within the night and what happens during the day should be noticeable and possibly even starting quests we wouldn't be able to start during different times. I like this idea because it would make coming back to the cities even more enjoyable. Not only that, but the idea that you would be able to start a quest during the night that wouldn't be available to you during the day only adds on to the immersion of the cities themselves. Making the cities feel more lively and immersing you into the world are very important when it comes to how people will react to the towns. Ways that will bring you back into the town and realize that there is more than just what is on the surface should be found throughout the game, and random events you don't see on a normal day should occur as well. The NPCs should be affecting what is happening in the game and be affected by it as well. When you talk to a person, they should feel different with how they act, talk, and what their motive is. Some townsfolk will hate you for what you do in game and others will praise the player. I want each NPC to feel different from one another and not just throwaway characters. Even though we all love Nazim and his Cloud District, he didn't even have his own home to return to, and that is not the only example of a character with wasted potential. I'm not saying give each NPC their own dedicated storyline, all I want is good dialogue options and even for some, a quest to follow it up the more you get to know them. The characters within the city should evolve over time and I have a couple of ideas that they could take it with. If they actually showed the growth of a child to adulthood, then that would give some passage of time, but would be difficult, so I wouldn't expect them to do that. Instead, give each NPC dialogue options and a backstory, whether that be big or small. I think that the player should have to build trust with characters in the game and a quest might get revealed when they trust you fully. This would give a reason to return every once in a while to see what happened with these NPCs and how the player affected them. If they can make the people that inhabit the city better, then the location itself will be much better. Bethesda should nail down plenty of quest opportunities within each city to bring the player deeper into the lore of that city. With quests like the Wolf Queen Awakens from Skyrim brought past events to a head in the game, and they should continue doing that in further Elder Scrolls games. I want it on a larger scale than Skyrim had, with Bethesda using show, don't tell to immerse us in these quests. Bring on the quests that will make the culture of the city a lot better, because that will make the city more in depth. What can really set the cities from Skyrim to the ones we will be seeing in the Elder Scrolls 6 is if they had holidays or seasonal events that the player could experience. The Burning of King Olaf was a festival that they had in Solitude but could only trigger from a quest. They should have more of this, but have it triggered by a certain day of the year to show the player the culture of the land they're in. If the Elder Scrolls 6 takes place in Hammerfell, we could have holidays like the Day of Lights and Festival of Blades. It should be a noticeable thing in game and not something that has 1 to 2 extra candles scattered throughout. I'm talking plazas for the holidays to celebrate in and people gathered around compared to every other day. Maybe we could have a quest where we set up the festivities and get enveloped into the culture of that province. You could have it during a certain time period for the game so people can still do it if they aren't able to make it on that specific day. If Bethesda does end up adding holidays, it would be a fun little thing that the player could find and show off the culture of the city. I would like them to add this to the game to keep it fresh and reasons to return. The cities themselves will change with parties happening, the scenery would look different, and people will be very festive, so I hope we see a massive rework to holidays for the Elder Scrolls 6. The last thing I want to talk about is the location and geography of the cities themselves. I want it to feel like the city actually fits into whatever region we will be seeing. I thought Skyrim actually did a good job with this. When we take a look at places like Markarth and Whiterun, it makes sense that we would be seeing a hybrid Dwemer city in the side of a mountain. Same goes for Whiterun with it being in the middle of a vast plains area. I want this to continue going into the Elder Scrolls 6, but let's say we see it within the province of Hammerfell, then it could be a little difficult to get all of the cities feeling unique. A lot of people believe that Hammerfell is heavily involved with the Alakir Desert, and while this is somewhat true, there are a lot of other geographical differences as well. We can see jungles scattered throughout, fertile grasslands along the southeastern border, and a large mountain range with the Dragon Tail Mountains. As you can see, there's a lot of diversity in the location itself, and this will only go deeper into its cities. I want each of them to feel like they should be there and very unique from one another. Even though we will see some cities that are very similar with port, desert-like towns, for the most part I want it to feel like a very different experience for each of the cities. I can really see them taking what they did with the cities in Skyrim and building off of it to make them even more different and unique from one another. This also goes with the smaller towns as well, because those should definitely not be copy and paste again. I think it will be a slam dunk for Bethesda to show that they can revamp cities and make them a lot better. Now, I want to take a look at the provinces themselves, so let's get it started by saying I do not want any old regions making an appearance in the next Elder Scrolls game. There are some circumstances where this is okay, like High Rock and Hammerfell, because we only got to see a fraction of the regions in Daggerfall, or how the game Redguard took us to the island of Stros Mackay, because there has been a big jump in technology since then to make a better and more unique world. And if a game was set in Hammerfell, then I expect that we would be seeing Stros Mackay making an appearance. I'm mostly talking about the games that are more recent, like Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim. Even though games like Morrowind and Oblivion are a lot older, and can get a big revamp with technology that we have these days, there is not a lot that you can change to the overall environment to Morrowind, because it is very distinct, and I'm sure that fans of the Elder Scrolls games would want to see a brand new environment to explore. Again, that doesn't mean I don't want to see them come back in the future games, but there is still a lot of Tamriel that we can explore, and I imagine not even Bethesda would want to go back to previous locations, and instead would want to flesh out an all-new region that will be unique to explore. We might see little Easter eggs or might take some excursions into some previous locations, but to have a fully fleshed out and large area is not something that I would want to see. It already looks like they're going with a semi-new location, with it being High Rock or Hammerfell, and I'm okay with that, because you can't really base a game off of a little sliver of a whole region that Daggerfall showed. Having a world where it is fully explorable and unique will be in the Elder Scrolls 6, and I hope that we don't go to a previous destination at any time soon. Either way, I want to talk for a second about the possibility of seeing 2 provinces in one game. We have seen this happen in both Arena and Daggerfall, but those games are really old and didn't show off what these provinces can really look like. Games like Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim have stayed with one region per game, and even though I'd like to see multiple provinces in a game, I think that it would be best if they just stick to one. There are a couple of pros and cons to each scenario, but if they decide to have more than one location for Elder Scrolls 6, the overall diversity of the game will be next to none. Let's run with the idea of the teaser showing both High Rock and Hammerfell, and you can just imagine how the game would be. You have High Rock, which is already a pretty diverse land with rolling hills, swamps, jagged mountainous regions, and the list goes on. Then there is Hammerfell with a sprawling desert, tropical areas, and arid fields. Put these two together and you get one of the most diverse and unique games in history. A lot of Skyrim fans complain that the region was just snow, even though I don't think that's true, but if you put High Rock and Hammerfell together, you fix that problem instantly. Putting the two locations into one game would be the most diverse we have ever seen, and even though I would want to see them in the Elder Scrolls together, there is one glaring reason to keep them separate. One of the best parts of Skyrim is the amount of detail put into it by Bethesda. There is a lot going on in the Elder Scrolls V, but by far, what makes Skyrim so good is the density of locations in the game that are next to none. Any direction you look in, you will find a different place to explore. Bethesda really made the game as crammed as possible, and that is not such a bad thing. In my opinion, if we put both High Rock and Hammerfell into the same game, we lose some of that density that we have come to expect from Bethesda games. They put a lot of detail into each and every single one of their games, so if we had two fully realized provinces, we would miss out on some places that could be in the game if we only had one region. Even though it is still possible to get the same amount of detail put into Elder Scrolls 6 that Skyrim had, I doubt we would see it if we had more than one province in the game. I think it would be a really good change of pace if we saw two provinces in one game, but I think for now we will just stick to the one location per game rule. What about the ideal environment that I would want to see for the Elder Scrolls 6? I'm not going to go into the actual environment of a specific location like Hammerfell because even though it is all but confirmed, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Realistically, the ideal environment is to have something that is very fantasy in nature and out of this world. The environment should shift over time with us being able to see these changes in-game. Just imagine that there were season cycles to the game and you would be able to see the leaves come off of a tree in the fall and then grow back in the spring. Now this is just one example and they can take it so much further. Like if we fought a giant in a forest clearing and you'd be able to see the aftermath of the fight. What if you would be able to see trees break from the giant swinging his club, and when he stomped the ground, it would leave an imprint of his foot in the dirt? Imagine coming back over time and the area where the fight occurred would heal over time with new trees springing from the ground, and the area where the giant stomped the earth would come back to normal, but you would still be able to see where he planted his foot for a little period of time. Stuff like this would make it so you don't have the same experience twice, it would make it that much more realistic. This would change any location big time, and I hope that Bethesda considers something like this in the future. I hope that they really lean into the idea of making a diverse environment from the creatures to the locations themselves. Taking a look at a place like Hammerfell, a lot of people believe that it is just desert. This is not the case at all. There are plenty of mountainous, sprawling plains and large forest areas. Even though a significant portion of the province is dry and arid deserts, there are still plenty of other regions to it. I hope that they take the idea of different geographical themes in the Elder Scrolls 6 to the extreme, and we don't see one type of environment heavily outweighing the others. They should all have their own feel to it and make it very diverse from one another, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what the Elder Scrolls 6 geography will look like in-game. Provinces in the Elder Scrolls games are one of, if not the biggest part of the game, where the game takes place judges the story, the characters you encounter, and the enemies you will fight. So if I haven't made it clear yet, location is very important. They can really make the next province something special wherever it takes place, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more. Magic is one of the major combat and playstyle methods when going through an Elder Scrolls game. It has taken a major downgrade when entering the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, and I would like to see it return to better forms of its sorcery from games like Oblivion and Morrowind. The lack of meaningful and interesting spells in Skyrim is alarming and is one of the first things Bethesda needs to take a look at. Looking at the destruction spells, most if not all of them are the same and needs to have some sort of fix to them. Making them more diverse with what they do and how they are seen in game is a good way to make it a lot better. Flames, freeze, and sparks, all of the same animation with slight variation to them, give us spells with distinct difference that we can see in game. Fireball and Firebolt are also the exact same spell, with one just being a larger area of radius, and this should not happen again. As fans, we want to see spells that are very different from one another, so it feels like we are evolving as our character and overall just gives us more gameplay variation. I really want to see the difference between these spells, and this should be something that Bethesda will look to fine-tune in the next game. Alongside seeing diverse spells, the sheer number of spells should also be increased from Skyrim. If we could have a large amount of unique spells, it will be a step in the right direction for Bethesda. Looking back on Morrowind and Oblivion, there was a massive amount of spells, and that was significantly decreased in Skyrim. If you look up a list of spells in Oblivion and compare it to Skyrim, you will be shocked at the amount that was left out of the Elder Scrolls V. The lack of spells in Skyrim is alarming and needs to be changed in the Elder Scrolls 6. A few different spells that I would like to see personally are more summoning options for the Conjuration Tree. It is hard to believe that there are so many Daedra in the Elder Scrolls universe, and the fact that we could only summon one type of Daedra was a big letdown. Daedra, Scamps, and Clanfear could all be good options and bring a lot more diversity to the next game. Bringing in more options for the Conjuration skill line is not a bad idea at all, and personally, I would love to see more choices in the next game. One type of magic we did not see in Skyrim is Mysticism. Even though most of the spells were put into different trees like Alteration and Conjuration, a lot of the ones we did not see return from Oblivion. I'm not saying I want to see Mysticism return as a whole, but if they could bring back most of the missing magic options like Dispel, then we could see a major revamp on that end in the next game. Probably the biggest downgrade that happened in Skyrim was how you couldn't make your own spells like in Oblivion. Spellcrafting was a major gameplay difference that set apart what being a mage is in the Elder Scrolls 4. It would be interesting to see what kind of variations of spells or powerful ones that you could make if they bring it back. If they do decide to bring it back, I would want it to have its own skill line that you can upgrade to make even more powerful magic. In the same way that smithing improves weapons and armor, spellcrafting would be able to upgrade spells. If they can find a way for magic to get better over time, it would be a major boost to gameplay. Being able to create or improve more powerful spells is something that is lacking from Skyrim, and hopefully we see it in the next game. There is a lot of potential when it comes to spellcrafting, and I would definitely want to see it brought back. I could only imagine what we could see. What if we could mix certain spells together, like maybe a lightning firestorm, or maybe a spell that shields you from enemies but also heals the player? The amount of combinations that we could see is next to none, and this is one feature that for sure should make an appearance in the Elder Scrolls 6. A big class of magic that was really underutilized was that of Necromancy. The art of conjuring the undead wasn't really fleshed out to how good it could have been. Taking a look at a game like the Elder Scrolls Online, they did a pretty good job when it came to the Necromancer class, but Bethesda can even take it a step further. I really like the idea of being able to draw power from the dead. If we could see spells that could grant extra armor resistance or absorb health when you cast it on the dead would greatly expand Necromancy just beyond raising the dead. Obviously, a main part of this would be the resurrecting part of it all, but by widening the range on this line of magic, it would be greatly improved just by those standards. I have always wanted to become a necromancer in Skyrim, but the lack of depth and immersion is something that needs to be further developed. The fact that it is allowed to raise the dead in cities and around people is something that has to be corrected. Even though it was never officially prohibited by the Empire, it is still greatly frowned upon. It should at least bring upon dialogue like the same if you are caught dragon shouting in cities. To go even further, necromancy is prohibited within the Mages Guild, so if we are to see its return in the Elder Scrolls 6, this should be addressed. If the player is caught practicing necromancy, there should be some type of consequence that is incurred, like a fine or even someone who talks to you and tells the player to stop. It would even be interesting if there was a secret necromancy teacher that no one knows about and the player can seek them out to gain more knowledge about the darker arts. This would improve immersion tenfold for magic in general and would be a great addition. Necromancy needs to be fleshed out more to round out magic, and any of these options would be a good idea for the Elder Scrolls 6. Enchanting and alchemy are also included in magic as a whole, and they are probably the things that are the best. When it comes to enchanting, there is not a lot that I would want to see done. They really hit the nail on the head, and maybe adding a few more options would build on depth. Overall, the skill line is very good, and I would like to see something similar in the Elder Scrolls 6. Alchemy is, in my opinion, very high quality as well, with how you create potions and learn how to make these powerful concoctions. Being able to figure out how to assemble the ingredients into these mixtures is something extra to do in Skyrim and could be very enjoyable. It can be a little overpowered at times, but other than that, there's no real downside for the system. For those who delve into the alchemy line, it could be extremely useful, and I hope that we see something very close to Skyrim's version in the Elder Scrolls 6. When people talk about what they wish Bethesda did better, one of the first things that come to mind is magic. This is likely because they removed a lot of features that we saw in games like Oblivion and Morrowind. I would still like a fresh touch to the next game, but bringing back a few of these elements from the older games could be a big improvement. In my opinion, these are some of the first things Bethesda needs to take a look at for the Elder Scrolls 6. I mean, without a good city design, fun magic system, and an intricate and diverse province, the Elder Scrolls 6 will never be able to set itself apart from previous titles in the series. There is so much more that we can see improved for the next game, but I really wanted to zero in on these points and get my ideas across about them. I want them to show off what they can do and how in depth they can go. They could make a lot of these even better for the next Elder Scrolls game, and that is exactly what I'm expecting them to do. We could see a lot of depth throughout many features in the Elder Scrolls 6 than just these, and that is exactly what they need to do. We will for sure continue to look at all aspects of the game here at the Denman, and we will discuss what we want to see improved or implemented altogether, so look forward to more on that. Either way, I'm sure you are all excited for where the next Elder Scrolls game takes place, and I hope this video helped in coming up with your own ways to improve the Elder Scrolls 6. But that is all for me now though, guys. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Comment any videos you want to see in the future, and I'll see you all next time.